Welcome to the Operate Intelligently podcast, the podcast for all things operations. I want to welcome to the podcast Jeff Tippett, who's going to come in and talk a little bit about persuasive communications, which is a topic I'm actually familiar with, being a communication professional myself, and actually had a chance to take persuasion in college. It was one of the more interesting classes. But Jeff, could you introduce yourself a little bit, tell us who you are, and a little bit about what you're doing today?
Absolutely, Brian. Thanks, first of all, for letting me come hang out and talk with you today and chat a little bit about persuasive communication. So I speak about half of my time on stages around the globe on persuasive communications, and then about half the time I still work with my firm doing client strategy and client interaction work.
Mm-hmm. And you're based here in Raleigh.
Downtown Raleigh office, and I'm here, when I'm in town, I'm in downtown office, and then, of course, traveling around speaking.
So I do want to mention, Jeff and I have known each other for a bit of time, first through kind of like social media, the early days of Twitter. I tell a lot of people it was kind of cool back then because you could kind of find your tribe. There wasn't a lot of us on there. And I think you and myself and several others who we were all really interested in this new technology kind of were able to kind of meet and establish a relationship in real life, which was really neat.
That was back for me, October of 2007, when I jumped on Twitter. Can you believe that long ago?
I know. It's amazing that it's over 10 years.
And we're only 29 years old, and we've known each other for this long. Yes. It's amazing.
We could do another whole bit about how the phones of that time. I mean, those early Blackberries, we were like taking video and amazed that we could do that. But getting back to what we want to talk about today, and that's being persuasive communication. So how did that kind of become a passion for you?
So I think my first real understanding of persuasive communications came when I was going through an international adoption of a baby from Haiti. And it wasn't that I had this lifelong dream of adopting a baby. It was a situation where my dad went over to do humanitarian relief. And while he was there, his translator was a 9th grader who was in an English-speaking Christian American school. And she happened to get pregnant. And the school gave her a very hard choice. They said, you either have to give up your baby or drop out of school. Well, Brian, I can't even imagine the emotion that goes through a mother's head to make that decision. But that was the decision that she had to make. And she decided that for herself, it was best if she gave up her baby so that she could finish and get her high school diploma. In Haiti, that's extremely important. And she felt like by giving up her baby that the baby then could have a better opportunity as well. So my dad came back, told me the story, and Brian, I don't know what it was, but I looked at the picture of this naked baby in her mom's arms, and I just knew that I was to fulfill this. I was to be the one to adopt the baby. I had no idea what was going on in Haiti. Haiti was collapsing at that point. President Aristide was being run out of office. There was all kind of political turmoil. So I'm just signing up. I'm in. I'm going to go over with no idea.
Sure, it's easy, right?
It's easy. It's just like going down to Garner or something, right?
Yeah.
No big deal. But it decays. I go over 3 or 4 visits. For the first time in my life, I have machetes held at my neck. I mean, imagine what you do with a gun pointed at your head.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It is terrifying. Yeah. I had to jump in back of pickups at times to flee the city to get out because students were rioting. And I reached this one point, this aha moment for me came when my Haitian attorney emailed me and said, Jeff, the government officials you need to sign this next piece of your adoption isn't showing up to work. They're not coming in. At best, you can consider your adoption on hold, but at worst, you need to face the fact that your adoption might be over. Well, I was deflated. In fact, I was just devastated. I got up the next morning to figure out what I was going to do. And this is my plan, Brian. I decided, being a little bit more assertive personality, I was just going to fly back to Haiti. I was going to go stay with my attorney, who had a house and office combined. And every day with my translator, I was going to walk to this office just hoping someone would show up. So I did it. Every morning I'd get up. I was optimistic. End of the day, I'd go home deflated once again. Went on for 2 weeks, Brian.
Wow.
Until finally someone showed up in the office. And you can imagine, where I am at this point. I didn't have many English-speaking people around me. So, there were all these words in my head. I had all these emotions. I was afraid. I was scared. I'd already fallen in love with this baby. I had taken her clothes. I'd seen her 3 or 4 times, spending time with her weeks at a time. And so he comes in, and I just explode on him. I am going off. I am like, I need you to complete this adoption.
Yeah.
I need you to sign this piece of paper here. This is my adoption. This is my baby. I need you to do this now. And he looked at me through the translator then and just said, no. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to do something to pull this back together right now. So I pull in the little bit of knowledge that I had of Haitian culture. And this is what I knew about Haitians, that they love their children, they value the family, and these little babies are like jewels to them. So I turned my messaging around and I made it to what was centric to him, what was important to him. And I started talking about this baby, this Haitian baby who was in a creche now, a halfway house, who didn't have a home. This Haitian baby who didn't have any promise of an education, financial backing, love, any type of a future. And I said, here she is, and I'm willing to be that conduit to make that happen if you would sign that. And within 10 minutes, we were signed and we were out the door. Walking back to my attorney's house, I began to question, what happened? How did I go from no to yes? And this is what I realized, that most times I was very much bent toward manipulation, where I was forcing people to do things versus persuasion. And that was my aha moment of the difference between manipulation and persuasion. And later, of course, perfected the definitions of those to contrast those. But that was that first understanding of why manipulation doesn't work for a long-term strategy and often doesn't work, and why persuasion can work.
Yeah, because, manipulation's similar to the hardest form of persuasion, like coercion, where we are, sticking gun or threatening people or doing things that are forcing them beyond their will. And I think that's one of the interesting things about persuasion is, there are these many layers of it, from the softest to the hardest.
Yeah.
And it does require you to look at your message and look at your audience and say, which one is best going to fit this model. But that's an amazing story. And I tell you what, I don't know if I could go through 2 weeks of going down there. I would have probably lost my temper and lost my cool and said, pack it up, we're going home. So when you go out and talk to people, how do you encourage them to use persuasive communication when they're not people that are, say, presenters or speakers? They're, they have a fear of getting up and maybe a fear of being direct in how they communicate.
So, Brian, here's in my new book, the big statement, my big argument here, my big, bold, audacious statement is this, that we all live or die based upon our ability to persuade. So to me, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a company trying to move a company forward, if you are in sales, if you're a sales manager, if you're in middle management, you have people on top of you, below you, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in IT support, it doesn't matter. Or if you just don't want to live alone for the rest of your life, right? We all live or die based upon our ability to persuade. So I don't think this is at all limited to business transactions.
Yeah.
I think this applies to how we relate to our spouse, how we relate to neighbors, how we relate to our children, how we relate to people that are important in our lives. It's not just this little narrow area of business. It's all areas of our life. And I believe it so much. That's why I hang tight on that one. We live or die based upon our ability to persuade others.
And even, it's even online. We see a huge amount of persuasive communication, getting into whether the information is even accurate, but coming across with a very strong persuasive message to begin with. And of course, now people are starting to become much more sophisticated in how they're filtering that or blocking it out altogether.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy, to go down the manipulation road versus the persuasion mode. But the thing about manipulation, especially if you're in sales, it might work once or twice with a person. Yeah. But none of us like to be manipulated.
No.
We've probably all gone and joined gyms and felt manipulated to hire a trainer. At the same time, we know what that feels like. But when we end up persuading people, and people are then buying in for their own benefit, they're happy with us. They love us. For me, I look for two magic words. When I'm in a conversation with a client or with a meeting planner, I look for two magical words to understand if I persuaded or if I manipulated. And those two words are, that's right. So here's how that plays out. We get ready to sign a contract with a client, and they look at me and say, Jeff, your company can provide the solution that we need. Jeff, that is what we're after. Jeff, we see a better future because of what you're bringing to the table. And they say, that's right, Jeff, this is what we need. Or a meeting planner that says, Jeff, you do have a solution for our audience. You can bring to the table what we need. What I know at that moment is, I'm not twisting their arm. They're doing it out of their own self-interest. They know it's best for them. And as the person who's persuading, it's my responsibility over a period of time to provide that sustained effort of sound reasoning to help them understand and figure out what's in it for them, what's the best solution for them. And at that point, we're not pushy, We're not. They want it. Like, they're begging. They can't wait to write us a check because they see it for themselves.
Yeah, it's like you're bringing them to that point of view through,
Bingo.
Building trust and credibility and those type of things versus, well, if you get this, here's a huge deal if you sign right now, and we don't have time to go through the due diligence that maybe you want to do and feel good about the decision. So
absolutely. In fact, you mentioned the word trust. When I finished the book and my editor and my publisher read the whole thing, they came back to me and they said, Jeff, you've kind of alluded to trust throughout the entire book here, but you haven't really hit trust head on. And they asked me the question, how important is trust to you? And Brian, to me, trust is it. I mean, that's the foundation. Without trust, take every single chapter of my book and go put it through a shredder.
Yeah.
Because it's of no value whatsoever. And which is why I took a whole chapter giving people 10 ways that they can build trust with their audience.
Oh,
it's
that's great.
primary. It's the foundation, and without it, persuasion will never happen.
Yeah, I agree. Are you looking for a way to get inspired about your work as a facility or operations professional? Join us at our annual Maintenance and Operations Conference, Dude University in Raleigh, North Carolina, May 5th through 8th, 2019. You'll be able to attend educational sessions about your day-to-day work, meet professionals from across the country that work in your and other industries, and enjoy food, friends, and fun in the Dude's hometown. Learn more and register online at university2019.com. So how can people kind of craft their message to be more, effective with persuasion and kind of create effective calls to action when they're doing it?
Yeah, a few things here on calls to action. We took a whole chapter just to kind of talk through calls to action, and a few things here that I think could possibly help. First of all is to make your ask clear. I mean, how many times have we gotten off a phone call or got an email or come out of a meeting and walked out and I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do. What is it that they're warning out of me? I'm not really sure. I put a whole chapter on just crafting a simple message. How do we make a call to action so crystal clear that there's no question whatsoever what it is that we're asking for people? I do encourage people to make sure there's a strong action verb in there as well. The verb has to be powerful, not in these passive verbs whatsoever. Things like making it personal. I encourage people in this call to action to use the word you or your really early. Can you put it in the second or third word of your call to action? Here's why. At that point, they're connected. They understand this isn't just generic for everyone, that this is something that's specific for me and is important to me. So using that, of course, communicating value. When people are giving up money or email addresses, what is the value that they're getting from you? And make sure that you clearly communicate that. I encourage people to be clever. Now, I'm not saying move away from your brand standards or do something that's that you're not proud of, but do things in a unique way, something that's just a little bit different that can capture their attention there. The sixth one that I advocate is emotion. I think emotion is extremely important in the process of persuasion. I took a whole chapter to talk about making this emotional connection with other people. So how do we bring emotion into the decision? Zig Ziglar tells us people buy for emotion, not for logic. So how do we connect with people at that emotional level? The sense of urgency, of course, without being manipulative, but some type of urgency there. I also encourage people to use a singular call to action. Sometimes we put 3 or 4 things out there that we want them to do, and they're like, I don't know. And we have this paralysis, right? I don't know what to do.
Which one do you want me to do?
Which one do you want me to do?
Tell me. Yeah.
Right. Tell me. So here's what I like to encourage people to do when it comes to this call to action. You may have 3 to 4 things you need out of people, but do them in a linear path. What's the first one that you need?
Exactly.
Get them to say yes to this, and then take them down the path of everything that you need from them. Reduce risk. One of the things that's going through psychologically, people are making this decision, they're going through the risk analysis. What's the risk here? So what can you do to reduce the risk? Is it money back? Is it 3 days? What does that look like? How can you reduce risk for them? Scarcity, also the power of a crowd, this whole social proof as well. How do you bring in the power of a crowd? And the last one that I offer is making sure that we make it easy. Sometimes we make all of this so complicated, and especially if it's something online, we're not going to do it. It's got to be easy. It's got to be very fast for us, or we're going to abandon it and we're going to be gone.
I couldn't agree more. And it's some of the same practices I do when we build our marketing campaigns.
Absolutely.
And we're looking at I think people have a good idea for a campaign, but they're not really breaking it down. What do I want them to do? What's the first step?
That's right.
And sometimes they jump to the third step. And you try to build out the communication and the whole campaign, and it's confusing. And I, that's where I'll raise my hand and say, okay, I think you're not going to get the results you want because you're confusing people, you're not clear, You've got multiple calls to action here. So let's trim it down and build that linear path, because theoretically, you want to have more than one interaction with this person.
That's exactly right. But we don't want to create barriers up front, because there's so many that they're confused.
Yeah.
And they're paralyzed. Like, I don't know what to do. So we don't know what to do. What do? We do nothing.
Yeah. Oh, I agree, because then that's the exact result you get is a big goose egg. Why am I not getting people to sign up for my newsletter or whatever I'm trying to accomplish? It's because you made it too difficult for your audience. So those are some great calls to action and advice. So do you have any other recommended resources for people that want to get started to be more persuasive in their communication?
Absolutely, buy my book. It'll be out in January. A big part of this is testing, just seeing how people respond and all this. One of the things that I'm very clear in the book is that this isn't just like a silver bullet. This isn't just a one thing. There's just not this one singular approach. If so, there'd be one book. We'd all read the one book, and then we would all know how to persuade. It's not that way. We're not dealing with robots or computers. We're dealing with human beings. I took a whole chapter to talk about helping other people find their win. I think that is one of the major mind shifts that we can make that will turn persuasion around for us. When we take it away from what we're trying to sell or what we're trying to make another person do, and we focus on what it is for them. Where is the win for them? Mm-hmm. When I step on this stage, what's happening in my head is I am not thinking about the check that I just got to be there or how beautiful the resort is, nothing like that. When I step on that stage, what I'm thinking about is those eyeballs that I see, and I'm wondering, what can I do to improve their life? How can I give them tips that when they leave, they have 3 things that can change their personal life, that can change their business life. And when we put our emphasis and we put our thrust on the other person, by byproduct, we get everything in life that we want.
So, Jeff, you had mentioned your book. Can you tell us the title and when it's coming out and where people could get it?
Absolutely. So the book is titled Unleashing Your Superpower: Why Persuasive Communication is the Only Force That You'll Ever Need. And in the book, I walk through manipulation versus persuasion. I walk through crafting a message, everything about the messaging, making it sticky, making it resonate. Talk about all that. I talk about your audience. I talk about positioning and call to action. And then I also talk about trust that we talked about a little bit earlier. I talk about the greater good in the book. And so I walk through everything that a person needs to go from hello to yes in the book. The whole path is walked out there. It's available on Amazon. There's a link available in the show notes. And
I was looking at your video, your promo reel on your website, and in it you're showing your inner superhero. I think it's Superman, right?
Yeah, as a kid, I was obsessed by superheroes. It was who do I want to be? And I could never settle. Here's the thing, if you're Superman, you're all right, then that's great. But then I would think about Wonder Twins, okay, but what if I had a friend, right? And we could do Wonder Twin powers activate, and there'd be 2 of us with superpowers. Isn't that even better? So it was only till adulthood that I settled on the superpower persuasive communication. But superheroes as a kid, man, I always wondered, who would I be?
Well, it was like Superman versus Batman back in the day, and I think Superman usually won out a lot of times if you wanted to fly. But if you're more of a gadget and car guy, it was Batman. I was a Batman guy.
You get it.
But I have to admit, always envious of the people that were more Superman fans, because he can fly.
The whole flying thing.
Yeah, the flying thing. And X-ray vision.
X-ray?
Cool.
Yeah, we're in the same dilemma there.
But Batman, at the same time, he's
Batman.
He's Batman. I can't go against my main man. So we are going to give our readers an opportunity to get a copy of Jeff's book. So we want to invite our listeners to participate, and how we're going to do that is we want you to send an email with your favorite superhero and send that to dspodcast@dudesolutions.com, and we are going to pick a random winner and give them a copy of Jeff's book.
I'm excited about that. Yeah, I want to know who their favorite superheroes are too. So share that with me as well, and we'll definitely get them a book.
Yeah. So Jeff, I want to thank you for coming in today and talking a little bit about persuasive communications and how people can use that to kind of benefit, how they manage relationships.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity to share and talk with you and your audience.
And we will have links out to some of the information that Jeff mentioned, as well as his book, in the show notes. I want to thank everyone for listening to today's episode.
Thank you for listening to the Operate Intelligently podcast, produced by Dude Solutions. You can reach us by emailing dspodcast@dudesolutions.com or check us out on the web at dudesolutions.com.